Welcome to the fourth in the series of Rounded's webinars, Making It Work. In these series, we look at what it really takes to run a successful solo business in 2025. We dive into the raw, real stories of Aussie sole traders and building sustainable businesses on their own terms. And each session features an industry pro from anywhere from a freelancer to a tradie who will share their experiences on being self-employed and thriving. So today's session will be and is being recorded. Everybody who attends and has registered will be given a link to the recording so you can watch it back. We will be taking questions as well. Please make sure that you're active in the chat and let us know so that we can pass on any questions to our guest. Our guest today is Diego Bonetto. Diego is a wild food advocate, forager, artist, and educator based in Sydney. Born in Italy and raised with the tradition of gathering wild plants and mushrooms, he has spent over 2 decades sharing this knowledge through workshops, tours, and community projects. He has collaborated extensively with chefs, herbalists, environmentalists, cultural workers, promoting a new understanding of what the environment has to offer, and works with local councils, institutions to provide content for community engagement. He is the author of the best-selling book, Eat Weeds, A Field Guide to Foraging, and he has received substantial media coverage from Gardening Australia, Marie Claire, GQ Australia, Sydney Morning Herald, ABC, and SBS, amongst others. Now, a bit of a long introduction, but Diego runs over 100 workshops a year, many of which sell out in advance. He's mastered the art of turning a niche passion into a value proposition that resonates, packaging deep knowledge into experiences that people will pay for even in tough times. So today we're going to look at how he went from passion project to profitable business, the principles behind designing experience that keep people coming back, his system for filling events even without a big budget, and how he's adapted to changing economic conditions. So a lot to get through today, and very glad to welcome you, Diego Bonetto.
So good to be here, Oliver.
Awesome. Well, look, let's get into it. Can you give us a little bit of background into yourself and how you got to the point where you decided you were going to set up your own business?
So I guess I'm in a typical story, like all freelancers are. You carve your path. That's pretty much what I did. So my business, inverted commas business, what maintains me for the past 20 years, is developed from, rather than a passion project, an art project, which is also passion project, but art was the genesis. I'm an artist, a trained artist. I did a university degree back in 2001, 2002. And as part of my practice, I started to investigate relationship with the landscape. And how can we reflect how we relate to the landscape in terms of multiculturalisms, disconnection to resources, and how we as humans can find a new participatory way to engage with our land, our ecologies. So I started as an art project, started to run workshops, and my fields of art is contemporary art. I'm an experience provider and starting to run self-guided tours about abandoned gardens and various other areas of the Sydney region. That moved on to finding out to my, I was quite a stunning person, was quite surprised that actually there's a lot of people who want this knowledge beyond the art audience. And that was the turning point to move on from the niche of art audience and expand it to the appetite of the rest of society. And that actually enabled me to run foraging workshop, various projects. Still am an artist, I still am a respected contemporary artist, still operate in the industry, but the vast majority of my audience wouldn't care less if I call it art or not. They come for the knowledge.
Excellent. And so how did you come to that point or that realization when you realized that the tours that you were doing, that people would pay money for it?
I guess the people told me. I was just always very attentive to feedback, to response, and I get people to tell me what's valuable in whatever I was offering, and I crafted and I shifted and I changed platforms and I explored all sorts of platforms, really. I was quite wild and shameless in that, till you find where your audience is. And since I find out as well that my audience is not one demographic whatsoever, there's lots of different people to come that want this knowledge for totally different reasons, from chefs to young families, from all migrants to gardeners, from farmers to survivalists. There's an incredible amount of different demographics who are interested in what I have to offer. The key is to create a platform that allows different demographics to find you. That's what was the turning point. And in my case was a blog.
Right. So beginning to share your knowledge in a long form blog was sort of the beginning of establishing yourself as a thought leader, if you will, and somebody with extensive knowledge in this environment.
Yes, to offer for free knowledge, allow people to find you. And once they find you and they want to experience and know more, they come to your workshop. So it's a proposition that is based first in gifting, and then the people will come to pay for the experience.
I think that's a really valuable point that you make, and I think something that is, a tip perhaps that can be taken to anybody in their work of life, that if you start from a position of sharing your knowledge, and obviously you have to find a balance of not giving away too much for free, because, you do have to build a business out of it, but giving somebody a taste of something that may lead them into wanting to know more is a really good way of thinking about it.
In my case, the oversharing is not an issue because I offer experience. You cannot overshare experience unless you dare. The most that I shared, those blogs, first with theconnection.com and now diegobonetto.com, 20 years of writing, created a truckload of internet breadcrumbs that whenever you do a search about foraging in Australia, I'll pop up. And it's not a matter of being cocky or and it's just a matter of create your business. In my case, I created a business first from gifting, and that give return loyalty, care, and gratitude, and that's where my business sits.
That's an amazing way of thinking about it. And I think that if we're going to chop any of this webinar into some nice little quotes for socials, that's probably going to be one of the ones. So I'm keen just to sort of deep dive into the evolution of this, because you mentioned up front that you used a lot of different platforms to try and find your audience. And obviously you've been through an evolution in the way that you develop your workshop. But I'd just love to know sort of a little bit more about trying to find, like, what were the little signals that you say, oh, okay, I've got an audience here. And oh, okay, like if I say this in a workshop, it seems to be something that gives me some feedback from the audience. Like, talk about how you thought about developing your product once you'd got going.
I like the idea that you think there was some thought process behind it. But anyway, so it is, as I said before, it was very much of responding to feedback. So as I was running workshop very early on, the first workshop was 2001, 2002. So that's 20 plus years. And getting feedback, understanding what knowledge is interesting. So acknowledging that, respecting people experiences, getting feedback. So it's always been quite a lot of that. And I crafted the workshop accordingly. So the actual workshop that I offered today, they are not a finished product. They're ever evolving. There's always new things. I need to come up with new jokes every weekend. And of course, I keep saying the same jokes, but eventually 2, 3 years on, they just become tired. So, so you need to just reinvent yourself all the time. That does a couple of things. First, makes it interesting. Me as an experience provider, I'm always on the edge. I'm always on the lookout. I'm always something new to explore and engage with. It makes it interesting for me, which is also quite important because makes me the experience provider learning as I'm going constantly. Therefore, I'm interested, involved, and committed to what I do. Secondly, all of these things that I learned through the process, they actually never go away. So accumulate, and I find myself, I don't know, 10, 15 years on in front of a plant I haven't seen in a while. I remember something I was telling 10, 15 years ago. And that piece of knowledge, it didn't disappear. It just accumulated. So it's not reinvented, does not mean dismiss what you got. It just means accumulate. And you build up an incredible basket. Let's keep it in the foraging workshop theme. I got a basket full of stories, and I haven't looked at the plant yet.
And I think that's important for everybody. Sometimes as well, it's difficult to know internally how much you've accumulated on your business journey because you're so focused on delivery and so focused on the day to day. And that sometimes it's, I find as well that you might talk to somebody who all of a sudden's a new entrant into doing the same kind of thing. You say something that you think is just assumed and everybody knows, and they look at you as if you've just, given them some little diamond, and then you
Yeah.
realize, oh, okay, well, maybe not everybody knows this. I guess an easier way to ask that question, though, is there anything substantially or tangibly different in the workshops that you did when you started to what you're doing now?
Streamline it, keep it simple, keep it broad enough so that the plurality of the demographics in front of you all understand and all get something about it. In the years, you also develop delivery skills like speak loud, speak slow, speak simple. Yeah. And all of these things, the skills that you build, they are indicative of your commitment towards communication, but at the same time, they're critical in delivering effective communication. So you get better at it. It's just like an electrician get better splicing cables. The first time, botch it out, and then, 2, 3 times you get better at it, and then becomes natural. What I do aspire is always be aware that there's more and there's new things and there is better ways. And that doesn't mean that the other ways are worse. It just means that there is more ways.
Yeah, understood. I think that's great, a great way of looking at it. So I want to kind of shift now and begin to talk a little bit about value. And as you know, a lot of people who are watching and who will watch the recording, they're all, skilled in some way. They've all decided to go out for business in some way, but they're all grappling with how do I articulate a value? How do I quantify a value for the skill that I'm offering? And that can sometimes be, it's harder for some business owners than others. And so I'd love to kind of start with how have you quantified the value of your workshops and the value, if you had to sort of break it down into the aspects of your workshops that deliver the value that people are prepared to pay for, what would they be and how have you identified those?
The value for the guest,
Yes, of course.
not how I value and how I qualify and quantify the value.
Ultimately, you have a business that you offer workshops that people are prepared to pay for, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, so from the audience point of view, how have you sort
Yeah.
of quantified and understood what the value is to the audience? And
What is that value in
yeah,
terms of what the people are ready to pay?
correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
That the audience will let you know that. Don't you worry. So let's start with that first. How do you put a price on what you offer? I come from, again, my journey is different. Everyone's got their own personal journey. In my case, I come from art. And as artists, we are used to get paid zero for what we do. So anything above that is value. Okay. So that's what I started with by offering free workshops. And I did that for years. Okay. So I only start to take it seriously and thinking, okay, so I can actually work with this and make it sustainable for me. That was 2008. So I won a scholarship, an art scholarship, and that allowed me seed funding, yeah, to how to take this to the next level. After that, I started to charge. Okay, where it is now, it's just what people are willing to pay. You look overseas, the reality of other people doing things like you check your, let's say, competition or people doing similar things as you. If it's not the same, similar things, check your industry, what other people charge. We inform each other, yeah. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to make it sustainable as a business, okay? So I need to pay my bills, I need to pay my petrol, like everyone else, pay all of the booklets, whatever that people get for free. Okay, that's how I put a value on it, is a direct reflection of the response of how the business grew and asserted itself in the space that is occupying now. What people get for value out of my workshop is knowledge, experience, actually. People engage in an experience to have an experience. So when they walk with me, we not only get knowledge, we look at plants, touch plants, taste plants, so that I create a multisensory experience, a multisensory engagement with ecologies. That is what people want. And recipes, follow-up informations, quirky questions, people who come to the workshop because they have this very strange nerdy corner they need to satisfy. I pay respect to that nerdiness and answer their questions individually. I keep my workshop small, and in the years I shrunk the numbers more and more. Now I keep it to minimal number because I want to make sure each person is acknowledged and each person is satisfied with their own personal experience. That's my commitment to my guest. I'm there to offer. And yes, I need to pay my petrol. I need to pay for the free things that people get. But my job is to offer and get people to walk away satisfied with the experience.
I love the concept of you talking about a commitment to your guest. I think that's a brilliant way to think about it. So at
Yeah.
a high level, then, if you had to pick like one or two things that were essential to a great workshop, what would you say would be the handful of things that any great workshop has to have to make it a great workshop?
In my opinion, people join the workshop for having a social experience. Okay, so a key elements will be recognizing individuals, allow people to be seen, so to be seen as a person in all of their quirkiness, in all of their journeys, whatever they are, whatever they want to get, to allow people to be seen. Secondly, it has to be within a certain parameter of length and physical effort. You cannot push people too much, you cannot go too long. At the same time, it cannot be too short. You need to find the golden time, the golden aspect of it. In my case, it's 2.5 hours, because then people get too thirsty, get too hungry, the kids get too reckless and too distracted. Okay, so you need to keep it within a framework of what works. You learn this. You learn these as you go. So see people, keep it short or keep it the right amount, more likely. Provide free things. People come, give them things to walk away with, okay? I give away booklets. I also give people plants to walk away with. So people need to walk away with something, okay? Just knowledge is forgotten. Something to take home, at least the knowledge get digested all the way home. Okay.
I think that's good. And, making people think that they've perhaps got something over and above what they thought they were going to get,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Over and above.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Cherish your guests.
yeah.
I do what I do because people want to know. I don't do what I do because I'm clever and funny and arty. I do what I do and I pay my bills with it because people want to know.
Amazing. Is there any particular method or any particular point during your customers' interaction with you and their experience with your workshop when you sort of insert the feedback mechanism? And how do you collect feedback from your customers and when do you generally do it?
Along the workshop, I just listen, and other things that I would like to add to the question before. Another key ingredient of the workshop is listen. It's not just about you talking, it's about you listening too. So workshop and feedback comes all sorts of forms. People send me emails afterwards, the Google reviews, incredible feedbacks, people talking to me. The best feedbacks come years after. So for example, I also teach pine mushroom foragings. It's amazing to see people I taught 5, 6, 10 years before, back in the forest, there with their family, telling me, Diego, we did a workshop with you 10 years ago. I keep coming back year after year and I bring my family. Thank you so much. How's that as a feedback?
Brilliant feedback.
My knowledge living on 10 years on, being passed on to family members, friends, cousins, whoever. That makes me happy as a knowledge provider to see that knowledge be put to use.
Your business and these workshops are, I'm sure, heavily contingent on word of mouth and people recommending a great experience. Have you done anything to build a referral engine or to generate people's willingness to recommend their experience with you to others?
Okay, so the bulk of my audience, as in 75%, is SEO, 5% is social media, 5% is referrals. So that gives you an idea.
Okay.
And then another 20% is direct. So people who knows me
Yeah.
and come to my website. You can find this information from your website analytics. That's where my audience is. And therefore, and yes, word of mouth, an incredible amount of word of mouth for people come back to my workshop. And more than word of mouth, is people that come to my workshop and they come again with their family. It's more than word of mouth. Recurring customers, bless you guys, much respect. Much respect. You made me, and I'm happy that it was worth it. And so recurring customer is very important as well. So, and there is another feedback. There you have it, worth it enough to bring the family. So there's that. But, the vast majority of my traffic is SEO.
Okay. Awesome. Good to know. Final question on sort of structure and delivery is there anything that you used to do that you've stopped doing now, through experience and, obviously you've talked about how it's evolved and how you've kept it fresh, but is there anything that you did do at the beginning and you sort of said, no, that doesn't work and you've cut it out?
As in bad jokes.
Well, yeah.
Jokes that no one get. Okay, yeah, got plenty of that. Yeah, there's plenty of things that just moved on. They shift, shape shift, and I will do them all again. Everything is just in what it is now. I mean, there are adventures that I started in the years and then I let go. Like I set up a foraging map, the wild food map, which was an incredible journey. 2011, 2012 to 2015, by the time we closed it. Incredible, was a world map of instances to highlight where the wild food is. So wild food map was pretty big when it was live, but then we never got any fundings. And there's so much you can talk sweet to your coders and trying to just upgrade the API of Instagram and whatever for free. You can't go forever. Yeah, you appreciate what I'm saying. You run an app too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it costs a lot of money, API.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we abandoned that. And Wild Food Store, another project that I started, that was 2016 to 2020, something like that, which I started a marketplace to sell these wild food sources to the high chef of the regions because they want it. And what killed that was COVID. Really, March 2020, the whole catering industry went belly up and they all reinvented themselves selling home delivery, high level food. And me and my fancy produce did not survive COVID, really.
How did you, I mean, I'm sure we would have got there, but how did you, from a workshop perspective, survive COVID? What did you do to pivot during that time?
In all due respect and much gratitude was saved me was Australian government grants,
Yeah. Okay.
first federal and then state, because I collapsed overnight. So all of my outdoor experience were all for free as you couldn't go anywhere. And then 2 years on, a year and a half on, you could go out with 5 people. Yeah. So it wasn't for the Australian money, first federal and then state government. Don't remember what they were called, but yeah, saved my business. But that said, that COVID soft reset rethink allowed me to do something quite important that years on spin off my business to a level that was not there before. I doubled my business in 2024.
Amazing.
What was that? The fact that I used 2020, 21 to engage and connect with my audience. I was blogging every week. I was writing a book. I created a book in the COVID times, because I had the book at the time, lucky me, very grateful. I had a book proposition from a publisher, which COVID hit. She called me up and yes, do you have time to write these books? Yes, got plenty of time now. So what did I do at COVID? I wrote a book.
Yeah.
And that book, here it is. That book now published, that book now sells, 23K copies. This book is taking the knowledge even further.
Amazing. That's a great segue into the next bit, which is about promoting yourself. You've mentioned already the makeup of your inbound audience through SEO, through word of mouth, through people knowing you. You've built a strong brand as the weedy one. And I guess so the first question I have around that was that intentional from the start, or was that something that evolved over time?
I'm actually on the other side, actually talking and actively diminishing my engagement with social media. I had
Right.
enough of it. I've done all sorts of projects in the years. By now, social media doesn't really get my audience and is 2% of my traffic.
Yeah.
Do I need to spend so much time on that? What for? So the witty one can just be for posterities. Yeah, so the branding, but the branding, actually the rewriting of the branding, the actual branding that is carrying me on now, which is diegobonetto.com, the logo and everything else, that also was through the COVID. So I was home, I was there, redid my logo, we did my branding, set up all of my storage systems, Google storage and whatever else you need to find and create, all of the backbone of a business, yeah, which takes time and effort to get it right. So yeah, so that was me every morning, get up, stretch, yoga, coffee, work.
Okay. Very good. I mean, I think obviously there's a couple of points there. One is about the consistency around which you've
Yeah.
and the discipline that you've evolved, but the other is also being able to let go of things that don't work. So you've obviously realized that, okay, well, social media is not worth my time and effort. I don't get my audience from there, and therefore, I feel comfortable in letting it go. But in terms of finding your audience and promoting yourself, you've obviously not only your workshops, of which you do hundreds a year, but you've collaborated with chefs and herbalists and councils and whatever. How did you, and I guess each one of those they would want different things out of a relationship with you. So you have to, you'd have to learn how to perhaps modify or moderate or customize your value proposition in a way that appeals to that audience and find them. So just talk about how you found all those different, those different channels and different people to speak to who are all looking for different things.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but what I offer is the same over and over again. Different audience come for different reason, but the knowledge is still the same. The actual experience is pretty much the same. Yes, they might have different questions. Chefs want to know recipes. Migrant want to know quirk of cultural ethnic quirks. Young families want to know how to make games with grass. Okay, but the plants, the ecology, the knowledge related to it is always the same. So how to reach the different audience is kind of organic. Different people came to my workshop for different reasons in different waves. I've seen also, because I'm doing this for 2 decades, I've seen also waves or up and down, okay? And for different reasons. I don't know, back in 2014, René Redzepi was in town. René Redzepi, chef's Noma restaurant, best world restaurant 4 or 5 years in a row. And famous because he was foraging for his audience, for his guests. And he came to do a pop-up for 2 months in Darling Harbour, $500 a seat kind of restaurant. All of a sudden, the catering industry all wanted to know about foraging. Oh, what? Renee, what's foraging? Oh, can I eat that? All of a sudden became topical and relevant, and my knowledge became important. People were seeking my knowledge. It's not about me, okay? I'm just a vessel, all right? The knowledge became relevant. Another example, back in 2012, there was the big scares of the collapse of the world, or the Maya calendar collapse. You remember 2012, we were waiting for the planes to drop off the sky.
Yeah.
And there was an incredible wave of survivalists and preppers coming to my workshops because they were getting ready. So different people activated for different reasons. After COVID, an incredible wave of young families came. People were homeschooling. And all of a sudden, they find out, oh shit, what do I do with these young, full of energy kids? I only have a backyard, So skill up and getting skills on what to do, nature game, how to recognize, making tinctures, making soap, all of these small things, that old things that became relevant again. So, you understand what I'm saying? So different people come to seek the knowledge for different reasons, and they find it because of SEO. The knowledge is the same. I never changed the story. I start with acknowledgement of country and finish with gratitude. And in the middle is whatever is offered wherever we're walking.
Yeah. Very good. So just to finish with, and this speaks to a question that we have on the feed. Certainly in recent times, cost of living goes up. There's pressure on everybody's wallets these days. Have you noticed a difference in the way that people engage with your workshops or are spending on experiences, generally given, that perhaps the disposable income is not what it has been in previous times?
So first of all, I just would like to point out that my experience are not expensive. They might, if you going and go to the movies, you spend $20, 25, so that is the reality of what's out there. And I don't offer a movie to 50 people. I offer a devoted experience to a group of maximum 15. But anyhow, that said, there is, I don't know, cost of living. People have been interested in this way before. I think that a big change in people perception of the value of this knowledge come from 2017, 18, 19, when we went through the millennium drought and people had burned frontier due to water restriction and everything else. And that's when people realized, okay, so there is changes afoot. Maybe we should start to think how to grow food, how to find food, how to make simple home remedy from the weeds in the backyard. All of these old skills that we all had up to 3 generations ago. Your grandmother, Oliver, would not need me, a funny guy with a funny accent, to tell her what she can eat out of the backyard. I don't care where you're from, or you, or any of you audience. This was common knowledge 3 generations ago. We just let it go. So I'm just bringing back something we all had. What I offer is rekindling of what we all had. And it goes beyond the aspect of cost of living, the collapse, environmental collapse, fear of collapse, anxieties of modern societies. It goes beyond that. It goes to the core of what we are as a species. We are what we do in our workshop in rekindle connection with ecologies.
How often do you raise your prices? Is that something that you do consciously and regularly, or is it just, that you look at it every now and again and, okay, think feels right to do it now?
Yeah, so I probably reassess the value maybe once a year, once every 2 years. And I always hold myself from raising prices. I also offer possibilities for people who cannot afford it. And at the same time, I also offer plenty of free information. So people who want the information do not need to come to the workshop. There is plenty of information. I offer plenty of free information. These books, you can get it at the library. You borrow at the library, that's the information. What I teach is here. Okay, minus the jokes. So there is that. And for me, coming, because I live in the country, don't live anymore in Sydney these days. I can't afford Sydney. So I moved out 3 hours west. And so that means for me to come to the city, it's a cost. It's a cost. I need a car, I need the petrol. The tolls keep going up. Every 6 months they keep going up, the tolls, don't they? I would like you to ask that question to the toll people. How do you assess the value of what you offer?
So, in terms of wrapping up now, we'll bring this to a conclusion. And obviously, if anybody's got any questions, please put them in now. But for anybody listening, if they're thinking about, if you had one piece of advice for somebody who was thinking of putting on a workshop, what would it be?
Make it real, be honest. It has to spark out of passion. If it's text delivery or whatever notes that the boss tell you to tell people, it shows. And is half a dozen, six or half a dozen. There's plenty of people who just read from a script. Be honest, be authentic, make it real, authentic. Okay, so one, this is how to run a workshop, but also something that I would like to voice because I think it's something that one of the big key learning things myself as a self-employed freelance adventurer. Learn to write media release. Media release, from my point of view, is probably one of the most important artwork that I never learned how to make. Learn to write media release. If what you offer is unique and what you offer come from a place of honesty and your stories is authentic and interesting, the media would want to know about it. Okay? And that road to write media release is not just how to put what, where, and when.
How did you learn how to write a media release?
Google search, learn from people, manuals, key to media release, what, where, and when, an image, a quote, something quirky, follow up, build your media contacts. This is people that wrote about you, and they're more likely to write again about you because it validates their work. Much love, journalists. But that's how it works. If they write about you and they have something else to write about you, they can link back to what they've written before. That's good. Yeah, so build your media contacts. This comes in is take it slow, make it fun so that it's sustainable. If it's not fun, it's boring. If it's boring, it's gray, pushed, uninteresting. People not want to pay for that.
Amazing. Diego, thank you. I think that that's a great place to finish. I think personally, I've learned a great deal. One of the best things about doing what I do is that they're, just understanding and learning about the sheer diversity of how sole traders and business owners find ways to make a living. And yours is as unique as any that I've seen over the 10 years that I've been involved. So thank you for sharing your experiences and story with us today. I think it's been fantastic. So all the best with your business. I'm sure it's going to continue to be a success. Have you got anything coming up soon that we can all look out for?
Channel 10, they're shooting in a couple of weeks. I don't know when it's coming up. I just say yes.
All right, Diego, thank you very, very much again. Thanks everybody who's taken the time to join us today. We'll be following up with the recording and the link, and we'll be sending you some information soon about our next webinar. Diego, again, thank you very much. Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
We'll see you soon.